It's hard to imagine Ryan Gosling losing his cool, but one director recalls Gosling flat out requesting his co-star be replaced mid-scene. He just couldn't work with them. That moment was only the beginning. This isn't the Gosling who quietly cracks jokes in interviews. This is Gosling the perfectionist, the fighter, the man who clashed with some of the biggest names in Hollywood. We're counting down 7 co-stars who made him say, "Enough is enough." Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Number 1. Rachel McAdams. When people think of Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams, the first image is usually their sweeping romance in The Notebook. What most viewers never guessed was that the actors who played one of cinema's most beloved couples were struggling to even be in the same room together. Their chemistry on camera hit a bitter clash when the cameras stopped rolling. Director Nick Cassavetes later described how tough it became to manage the tension. At one point, Gosling actually asked him to bring in another actress to read with him because he felt McAdams was impossible to work with. For a film that relied on deep emotional connection, that kind of animosity threatened to derail it. Things got so bad that Cassavetes eventually locked the two of them in a room and told them not to come out until they worked through it. The irony was impossible to ignore. While audiences would later cry over their passionate love story, in real life they were quarreling to the point of standoff. And yet, out of all that conflict, something unexpected happened. 2 years later, McAdams and Gosling began dating, creating the rare case where hostility turned into romance, making this feud unforgettable. Number 2. Harrison Ford. Working alongside Harrison Ford isn't just stepping into a film, it's stepping into a storm. Ford has a reputation for cutting straight to the point, and that no-frills attitude carried right into Blade Runner 2049. For Ryan Gosling, the biggest challenge wasn't just acting opposite a legend. It was figuring out how to adjust every moment to someone whose style could feel more like raw force than careful craft. Their banter at times turned into something heavier. One moment that slipped from performance into reality was a fight scene where Ford's character threw a punch. On paper, it was staged. In practice, Gosling took a full hit that knocked him back for real. For most actors, that would have shattered the mood. Ford brushed it off, keeping pace as if nothing unusual happened, while Gosling tried to recover with a straight face. That single punch summed up their whole working dynamic. Ford bringing gruff energy honed over decades, Gosling working through it with patience and restraint. Fans loved the edge it brought to their partnership. But when the cameras weren't rolling, Gosling was left handling a co-star who demanded constant adaptation just to keep up. Number 3. Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe brought a force of nature energy to The Nice Guys, the same intensity he's been known for throughout his career. When he teamed up with Ryan Gosling, viewers saw 2 very different kinds of performers collide. Crowe gave off a no-nonsense bulldozing presence, while Gosling leaned into timing and subtle quirks. On screen it looked electric, but during production, the clash was harder to manage. Crowe has long been linked to a fiery reputation, famous for being outspoken with directors and quick to challenge colleagues if something didn't sit right. That edge carried into his work with Gosling. Reports from the press tour hinted that Gosling often had to adapt quickly to Crowe's assertiveness, balancing his own rhythm against someone who liked to dominate the space. Even in interviews, hints of unease peeked out, with Crowe leading answers, and Gosling occasionally left playing catch-up. What gives this story bite is that the mismatched tension mirrored their characters almost perfectly. The awkward partnership fans laughed at on screen wasn't an invention. It was rooted in a real disconnect behind the camera. In a twist, that friction gave their comedy spark, showing how conflict, rather than harmony, can create lasting chemistry. Number 4. Eva Mendes. Working with a partner off-screen might seem like a natural advantage. But for Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes, The Place Beyond the Pines complicated things instead of smoothing them out. Their real relationship meant every scene carried more weight. And that pressure showed. What started as a creative partnership often spilled into personal territory, where disagreements didn't end when the director called cut. Mendes was no passive partner. She had her own clear sense of who her character was supposed to be, and she wasn't afraid to hold her ground. Gosling, known for being deeply focused and sometimes rigid in his process, found himself clashing with that independence. Instead of detaching once filming wrapped, conversations about the story and choices unfolded at home, crossing the line from work into their relationship. That overlap blurred boundaries in a way none of Gosling's other partnerships had. Stakes were higher because a fight on set risked echoing into their private lives. Yet, instead of breaking them down, it forced both actors to face those conflicts and find balance. The result was a bond that carried well beyond the film, leading to marriage and a family built on the lessons of that uneasy beginning. Number 5. Damien Chazelle. Most on-set clashes happen between actors, but Ryan Gosling's toughest friction came from the man calling the shots. On La La Land, he found himself butting heads with director Damien Chazelle, whose reputation for intense preparation was already well established. Gosling entered the project known for his own careful process, and the result was two perfectionists trying to steer the same ship. Chazelle's approach relied on long, grueling rehearsals that stretched well beyond what most actors might expect. Gosling spent weeks learning piano and dance routines, rehearsing over and over until every note and every step matched the director's exact vision. Footage from behind the scenes showed flashes of real frustration on Gosling's face, as endless repetition drained the spontaneity he often leaned on. During filming, Chazelle's demand for multiple takes added another layer of strain. A single musical number could swallow entire days, with the smallest details being reworked until they felt flawless. It pushed Gosling to a breaking point, but it also left little room for compromise. Ironically, this relentless clash produced one of Gosling's most celebrated roles. His performance drew critical praise, turning the tension into proof that even when the collaboration wasn't smooth, the final product could still shine. Number 6. Sean Penn. Sean Penn has always carried a kind of weight onto a set, the kind that can throw off even experienced actors. During Gangster Squad, that intensity became a challenge Ryan Gosling hadn't quite faced before. Penn is known for shaping scenes in the moment, leaning heavily on improvisation and raw energy, and it quickly created an uneven rhythm between the two. While Gosling preferred a precise, disciplined process, Penn thrived on spontaneity, leaving his co-star with little ground to anticipate from one take to the next. Reports from the production described Penn's style as domineering, and that wasn't just a quirk. It had very real consequences for chemistry. Gosling, usually calm and adaptable, found himself reacting rather than building, often struggling to meet Penn's unpredictable pace. Viewers, who later saw the tension carry into the final cut, weren't just watching characters spar. They were watching actors with competing methods forced into the same frame. The clash might have paid off if the movie itself had resonated, but Gangster Squad, Turters, underwhelmed both critically and commercially. Instead, the friction stood out as wasted energy. For Gosling, it was one of the rare examples where his usual charm couldn't soften a partner's sharper edges. Number 7. Anthony Hopkins. The last name on this list is also the most surprising, Anthony Hopkins. When Gosling worked with him on Fracture, he wasn't just acting opposite another performer, he was measuring himself against one of the most respected actors alive. For many, sharing the screen with Hopkins would be a dream. But for Gosling, it came with pressure that soon turned prickly. Hopkins's calm delivery masked an unpredictable edge, and Gosling, still cementing his place in Hollywood, felt that weight in every scene. Hopkins brought an improvisational style, often slipping in small changes or spontaneous choices once the camera was rolling. Gosling, who prefers methodical preparation, found himself thrown off balance. Whispers from the set suggested he left some takes frustrated, struggling to regain footing against Hopkins' fluid energy. The older actor thrived on spontaneity, while Gosling wanted precision, and that fundamental difference produced visible sparks that weren't always easy to manage. Yet that tension also raised the stakes. Gosling had to push harder, matching Hopkins's shifts with sharper focus rather than retreating. The result was a sharper performance that proved he could hold his ground against a legend. What started as intimidation became confirmation. Gosling could step into the arena with giants and belong there. Ryan Gosling's clashes don't mark him as selfish or spoiled. They show an actor willing to fight for honesty, even if that honesty comes through disagreement. He isn't afraid to stand against co-stars or directors when something feels false, and that trait has shaped some of his most memorable performances. The joking charm most people see in interviews hides a sharper edge, a drive that pushes everything forward. So, do you think these battles made him better? Or did they hold him back? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes untold stories.